A wild horse suddenly charges into a funeral, stomping on the coffin and cracking it open. What spills out leaves everyone in absolute shock. But what truly happened next? Before continuing the story, tell me which city you're watching from. I want to know how far this video has come. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so I can send you exciting stories like this every day. The morning was as quiet and unassuming as any other in the small, dusty town of Laredo, Texas. The earth, parched and unyielding, mirrored Samuel's spirit, a man who had spent his life tilling these stubborn fields, inhaling the dry air and tending to the few animals on his modest ranch. Known to everyone as a man of quiet diligence, Samuel had never sought a life beyond these rugged plains. His solace lay in the furrows of the soil and the distant crow of roosters greeting the dawn. As he worked through his morning tasks, the silence was interrupted by his neighbor Ethan, rushing toward him, breathless. "Samuel," Ethan called out, his voice edged with urgency. "There's a foal abandoned by the river trail. It's barely able to stand. Looks like someone just left it there." "Poor thing," Samuel muttered, shaking his head in sorrow. At that moment, an invisible string seemed to pull at his heart, compelling him to act. Without hesitation, he set down his tools and headed for the trail. This wasn't the first time Samuel had stepped in to save a helpless animal, but something about Ethan's words struck a chord. It felt different, as though this encounter was meant to be. When he arrived, the sight before him brought him to an abrupt stop. By the side of the dusty road lay the foal, a fragile and trembling figure, barely clinging to life. Its coat, caked with dirt, clung tightly to its skeletal frame, and its wide, dark eyes stared at Samuel with a haunting mix of fear and exhaustion. "Oh, little one, what have they done to you?" Samuel murmured as he approached cautiously, his voice soft and reassuring. He knew the foal was in a precarious state. Any sudden movement might frighten it and sap what little strength it had left. As he drew nearer, the foal tried to rise on its spindly legs, but they buckled under its weight, sending it crashing back to the ground in a puff of dust. A small group of passers-by paused on the trail to watch, their murmurs carrying skepticism. One man, older and wearing a straw hat, shook his head grimly. "Samuel, that foal's as good as gone. Why trouble yourself? It'll only be another burden for you." Samuel barely acknowledged the words. His focus was on the small creature before him, its labored breaths and trembling frame, speaking of a life on the edge. For Samuel, every living being held worth, no matter how small or frail. When his gaze met the foal's, he saw something there, a faint glimmer of life, fragile yet defiant. That flicker was all the confirmation he needed. Slowly, he knelt down and with great care lifted the foal into his arms. The animal was alarmingly light, its frailty almost heartbreaking. Samuel felt its slight shivers against him, but he whispered soothingly, "I've got you now. As long as you're breathing, there's hope." Determined, he began the long walk back to his ranch. The onlookers exchanged doubtful glances, but Samuel paid them no mind. In his heart, this foal was no burden. It was a promise, a responsibility he was bound to honor. Once home, Samuel laid the foal gently on a bed of fresh straw in the old barn. He watched as the animal shifted, finding a semblance of comfort for the first time. "I'll call you Luna," he said softly, a faint smile touching his lips. "Because that's what you are. Life." The name felt fitting, a testament to the second chance he was determined to give this fragile being. Luna was not just a name, it was a vow. Samuel silently promised to do everything in his power to save this foal, no matter the cost. That night, he stayed awake by the barn door, his watchful eyes on Luna. Occasionally, he would approach, offering water and murmuring gentle words of encouragement. "Rest, Luna," he whispered, his voice a quiet balm in the stillness. "Tomorrow will be better." As dawn's first light crept over the horizon, Samuel approached the barn once more, his heart a mixture of trepidation and hope. The night had been long, every small sound and faint movement keeping him on edge. Yet, as he stepped inside, he knew one thing for sure. He would fight for Luna's survival, one small step at a time. The young mare appeared calmer now, though her breathing remained weak. With each step closer to her, Samuel felt his heart race, fearing he might find her lifeless. Yet there she was, resting on the hay, her large dark eyes meeting his, with a tired yet grateful gaze. Determined not to waste a moment, Samuel carefully lifted her into his arms and made his way toward the town vet, a seasoned older man known for his deep understanding of animals. The road wasn't far, but on that chilly morning the journey felt like an eternity. When he finally arrived, the vet stepped outside to greet them, his sharp eyes narrowing as he studied the frail foal in Samuel's arms. "What do we have here, Samuel?" the man asked, adjusting his glasses while inspecting her critically. "It's Luna, Doc," Samuel explained in a low, steady voice, masking the storm of worry churning inside him. "I found her abandoned near the river. I couldn't just leave her there." The vet nodded, a quiet understanding passing between them as he recognized the bond already forming between the man and the struggling animal. After a thorough examination, the vet sighed heavily, his expression serious as he looked at Samuel. "Listen, Samuel, I don't want to give you false hope. Luna is extremely weak. Her body barely has the strength to sustain her. And honestly, the prognosis isn't good, even with weeks of care." He paused, searching for the right words. "She still might not make it." Samuel's stomach nodded at the vet's somber tone, but he refused to let doubt take hold. He looked down at Luna, her breath shallow as she lay on the examination table. "As long as she's still breathing, Doc, I'm not giving up," Samuel replied firmly. The resolve in his voice left no room for argument. It was clear to both men that Luna wasn't just an animal to Samuel. She was a promise, a commitment. The vet nodded, impressed by Samuel's determination, and handed him a set of instructions. "She'll need soft food that's easy to digest. Keep her warm, especially at night. The cold could make things worse." He also gave Samuel a small bottle of and a few more tips. "Do your best, Samuel, and may God be with you." With a renewed sense of purpose, Samuel cradled Luna in his arms and headed home. That night, his work began. Following the vet's advice, he prepared a mixture of warm milk and softened feed, offering it to Luna in small portions. At first, she refused, her weakened body barely responding. But Samuel was patient. He spoke to her softly, his words carrying both comfort and encouragement, as though they could convince her to keep fighting. "Come on, Luna, you're not alone. I'm right here with you," he whispered, gently stroking her thin back, feeling her frail bones beneath his hand. His touch was careful, filled with hope that his warmth and care could reignite her will to live. Days blurred into weeks, and Samuel never left Luna's side. He woke in the middle of the night to feed her and ensure she stayed warm, especially as the cold winter air crept into the barn through the cracks. Every day felt like a small victory, a constant struggle fought with patience and love. The nights were long, but Samuel found strength in Luna's eyes, those faint glimmers of life that seemed to tell him she hadn't given up. Then, one early morning, as Samuel kept his usual vigil, he noticed something different. Luna was trying to stand, her fragile legs trembling under her weight. Holding his breath, Samuel watched every movement intently. She wobbled and collapsed again, but didn't give up. With a deep, determined breath, she tried once more, this time managing to stay on her feet for a few precious seconds before faltering. That brief moment was enough to fill Samuel with an overwhelming sense of joy. He knew the road ahead was still long, but Luna was fighting, and that was everything. As the weeks went on, Luna began to take tentative steps. At first, just a few shaky movements, then a little more. Samuel stayed by her side, supporting her, steadying her when she faltered. Every step she took was a triumph, and Samuel's pride was boundless, as if her victories were his own. As the neighbors passed Samuel's farm, they couldn't help but marvel at the transformation of the young horse. Those who had once urged him to abandon his efforts now looked at him with admiration. Some approached to inquire about his progress, while others watched quietly from afar, amazed by the unwavering dedication Samuel showed to Luna. Over the months, Luna's metamorphosis became evident to Samuel and to all who had once doubted her recovery. The fragile, trembling foal had grown into a strong, elegant mare with a coat that gleamed under the sun, reflecting the care and love she received. Every time Samuel looked at Luna, he saw a living testament to resilience and determination. Deep in his heart, Zathon, he felt a gratitude. Luna reminded him of his own battles, the silent wars he had fought, and the scars, though unseen, that carried the weight of his past. As time passed, a quiet yet profound bond developed between Luna and Samuel. It didn't matter where he was or what he was doing. Luna always found her way to him, as if she instinctively knew her place was by his side. Samuel often marveled at how she followed him across the farm, her dark, attentive eyes fixed on him, as though every one of his movements carried a unique significance to her. "Luna, my faithful companion," he would say with affection, gently running his hand along her back. And Luna, in her characteristic silence, would lower her head, accepting his touch with a shared understanding between them. They needed no words. Simply being together was enough to convey everything they felt. One day, however, Samuel arrived at the farm with a heaviness about him that Luna sensed immediately. His steps were slow, and his gaze seemed lost in thoughts he couldn't articulate. Without hesitation, Luna approached him and rested her head softly on his shoulder, as if to share in his burden. That simple, heartfelt gesture brought a faint smile to Samuel's face. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the quiet comfort she offered wash over him. "Thank you, Luna," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper as he stroked her head. "Sometimes it feels like you're the only one who truly understands." In that moment, Samuel realized that Luna was more than just an animal. She was a kindred spirit, a presence he could rely on even in his darkest hours. Over the years, their bond became so undeniable that the neighbors began to talk about the unique friendship between Samuel and his mare. "It's like they share the same soul," some remarked, or struck. Others viewed the connection with quiet respect, as though it represented something sacred, something beyond judgment or explanation. To Samuel, every day with Luna was a blessing. She had transformed from a vulnerable, helpless creature into a beacon of life, inspiring everyone who saw her. She had given him back something he thought he'd lost, a reason to face each day with hope, a companion who filled the silence of his solitude. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, casting the sky in hues of orange, Samuel sat on an old log, watching Luna graze peacefully nearby. A gentle smile played on his lips, the kind that comes only to those who have found true peace. "Look at this, Luna," he said softly, as if speaking to himself. "All the effort, all the time, it was worth it." Luna lifted her head as if she had heard him, then slowly approached with her signature graceful, purposeful stride. When she reached him, Samuel extended his hand, and Luna brushed it with her muzzle, a silent promise, a connection that transcended words. From that day on, Samuel knew that no matter how many seasons came and went, Luna would always remain an integral part of his life. In her, he found not just companionship, but the strength to carry on. Each sunrise they greeted together reaffirmed the decision he had made on that distant morning when he found her weak and alone, and the vow he had made to care for her as long as there was breath in his body. As the years passed, Samuel began to notice his body betraying him in ways it never had before. The boundless energy that once carried him through long days now flickered out far too quickly. Mornings had grown into a battle. Every movement felt heavier, and rising from bed required more willpower than he cared to admit. His heart, once a steady and reliable rhythm, now faltered unexpectedly, leaving him breathless at the most inconvenient moments. Though he tried to mask his weakness, deep down Samuel knew something was seriously wrong. One afternoon, while attempting to lift a heavy sack of grain, a sharp pain seized his chest. The pressure was so intense that he had to drop the sack and lean against a nearby wall for support. His breaths came in ragged gasps, and for a moment the world seemed to shift beneath him. Nearby, Luna, his loyal mare, raised her head at the sight of his distress. Slowly she approached, pressing her muzzle gently against his shoulder, as though offering her strength or at least some silent encouragement. Samuel reached out, his hand finding comfort in the soft texture of her mane as he struggled to steady himself. "Don't worry, Luna. I've still got this. I've still got you," he murmured, his voice quiet and laced with doubt, as if trying to convince himself more than her. Yet Luna's large, soulful eyes seemed to see right through his facade, reflecting an understanding of the pain he worked so hard to hide. Over the days that followed, Luna began to stay closer to Samuel. She followed him across the farm, her watchful presence a constant shadow. No longer was she just the steadfast companion of his youth. She had become a silent guardian, always on alert, always near. Samuel felt the weight of her watchful gaze, and while he tried to carry on as if nothing had changed deep inside, he was grateful for her quiet loyalty. That invisible bond between them felt stronger than ever, a lifeline as his own strength waned. Eventually, Samuel had to confront the reality he'd been avoiding. His once tireless days working the farm were long gone, and even the simplest tasks had become insurmountable. With no small amount of hesitation, he reached out to his nephew Nathan for help. Nathan, a strong and good-hearted young man, agreed without question, quickly taking over the daily responsibilities, feeding the animals, tilling the soil, and handling the chores that had once been Samuel's pride. However, Luna wasn't so quick to welcome Nathan. She regarded him with quiet suspicion, her guarded demeanor making it clear that Samuel remained the center of her world. No matter how gently Nathan tried to approach her, Luna would always return to Samuel's side, seeking the comfort of his presence, even if he could barely make it beyond the front door. One afternoon, despite the persistent fatigue weighing on him, Samuel decided he had to visit Luna in the corral. Each step was a struggle, but the thought of seeing his old friend gave him the strength to push forward. When he finally arrived, she was already waiting as if she knew he was coming. Luna walked up to him immediately, matching his labored pace, her movements unhurried and deliberate, mirroring his frailty. "You always know when I need you, don't you, Luna?" Samuel whispered, running a hand along her sleek neck. Luna leaned into his touch, exhaling softly, her breath slow and steady, as if syncing with his. In those moments, Samuel found solace, a brief reprieve from the relentless toll time had taken on him. But time pressed on, indifferent to their bond. Samuel's strength continued to fade, and his visits to the corral grew infrequent. The days when he could linger with Luna under the open sky became increasingly rare. From the window of his modest home, Samuel would watch her grazing in the distance or standing still, gazing toward the house as though waiting for him to appear. Sometimes when Nathan left the door open while heading out to the fields, Luna would cautiously approach the porch. She'd peer inside as if searching for her old friend, hesitant but determined. Seeing her so close brought a bittersweet mix of emotions to Samuel, an ache for what he had lost, and a deep gratitude for the steadfast love she continued to offer. The mare that had once relied on him now seemed to be the one watching over him. Their roles had shifted, but their bond endured, unbroken by time or circumstance. "Ah, Luna," Samuel murmured softly, his voice barely audible. "It seems the roles have reversed. Now it's you taking care of me." In those tender moments, an unspoken connection tied them together, a bond that transcended words. On the days when getting out of bed was an impossible feat, Nathan stepped in, tending to Luna in Samuel's place. But whenever Samuel could muster the strength to walk to the pasture, even for a few precious minutes, Luna was always by his side. It was as if they both knew that every shared moment was irreplaceable, fleeting yet priceless. The sunlight streaming through the trees and the gentle breeze of the open fields bore silent witness to a love so simple yet profound. This bond, born in the frailty of life, grew even stronger as Samuel's health began to falter. Day by day, his condition worsened. He spent more and more time confined to his small, modest home, where even the sunlight seemed hesitant to intrude, casting only a timid glow through the thin curtains. Each breath became a struggle, an ache deep in his chest. His family took turns attending to him, bringing water and fulfilling his needs. Yet Samuel's mind wandered far beyond the four walls that contained him. His thoughts always circled back to Luna. He would ask about her whenever he could find the strength to speak. Is she all right? Has she been fed? Has anyone let her roam in her favorite spots? The mare lingered in his mind, a constant concern that refused to release its grip. Samuel knew his time was slipping away, and the uncertainty of Luna's future weighed heavily on his heart, a burden almost too much to bear. One late afternoon, a brief reprieve from the pain gave Samuel a moment of clarity. "Nathan," he whispered, "open the window, please. Let me feel the air, hear the fields, and maybe see Luna." With gentle care, Nathan pulled back the curtains and swung the window wide. The cool air of the countryside swept in, carrying with it a breath of solace. And there she was. As if drawn by the same pull, Luna appeared in the field, her dark silhouette etched against the golden hues of the setting sun. Samuel's eyes softened at the sight of her. Luna, sensing his gaze, began to walk slowly toward the house. She stopped just shy of the porch, standing still where the light met the shadows, her quiet presence radiating understanding. A faint smile graced Samuel's lips. In a fragile whisper, he spoke. "Luna, my dear Luna, You've always been so much more than just an animal to me." From that moment, Luna seemed acutely aware of her friend's frailty. Each day she approached the window, waiting patiently, as if she understood how fleeting their time together had become. She stood motionless for hours, offering Samuel her silent companionship. No words were needed. Her presence alone filled the room with a quiet comfort, making his final days a little less lonely. Samuel's family watched this silent ritual with a mix of awe and disbelief. Some claimed they had never seen such devotion from an animal, while others speculated about the depths of an animal's emotions. Yet, when they saw Luna standing steadfast by the window, they knew she understood. In her quiet, watchful way, Luna had taken on the role of a guardian, standing vigil over her beloved companion as his days dwindled. As time passed, Luna's gestures became even more tender and deliberate. On rare occasions, the family managed to guide her inside the house. She would lower her head by Samuel's bedside, her soft muzzle brushing against his hand. Samuel, though frail and barely able to lift his arm, would reach out to stroke her neck. In those brief, precious moments of connection, he felt a profound peace, as if his entire life had been distilled into those fleeting touches. "Thank you, Luna," Samuel whispered one evening, his voice breaking under the weight of emotion. "Thank you for being here." Luna's dark eyes gazed at him, a well of understanding deeper than words. It was as if the boundaries between human and animal had dissolved entirely, leaving behind only the purest expression of loyalty, love, and unspoken farewell. In those moments, there were no differences or barriers, only the bond of genuine friendship and a profound love that tied them at their very core. As the days unfolded, Luna began to show signs of a strange restlessness, as though she sensed an inevitable change looming on the horizon. She wandered to the window more often, pacing nervously across the porch, her gaze repeatedly falling on Samuel's empty bed. Watching her, Nathan could tell that the mare was deeply aware of the impending farewell. Though no one could explain it, everyone around sensed that Luna was bracing herself for the moment when her faithful companion would no longer be there. On a hushed and somber morning, surrounded by loved ones, Samuel took his final breath. The house was enveloped in a heavy silence, broken only by the muffled sobs of his family and the faint murmurs of their prayers. The news quickly spread through the small town, and neighbors and friends soon arrived to pay their respects to the kind, gentle man who was beloved by all. Faces reflected the collective grief, for Samuel had been more than just another farmer. He was a man who commanded respect, a loyal friend, and an upright soul whose life had touched so many. The family, devastated by his passing, began preparing a funeral that would honor him in the same humble way he had lived his life. The ceremony would be simple, free of elaborate decorations, yet imbued with deep reverence and gratitude for the man Samuel had been. That morning, as the family made arrangements for the service, soft murmurs filled the air, recalling the stories and lessons he had shared with so many in the town. Yet there was another heart, one aching in a way that words could scarcely describe. Luna, the loyal mare who had shared so many mornings with Samuel, felt the void keenly from the very moment he failed to come to the pasture to greet her. For years, it had been an unbroken routine. At dawn, Samuel would approach the corral, and together they would begin their day. But this time, the corral remained eerily quiet, and the gate never swung open. Confused and unsettled, Luna began pacing back and forth. She cast hopeful glances toward the house, waiting for Samuel to appear. But as the hours slipped by with no sign of him, she started wandering the property, searching every corner as if she might find some trace of him. Her movements grew more frantic, and the sorrow in her eyes, silent despair, pierced the hearts of everyone who saw her. Nathan, Samuel's nephew, noticed Luna's unusual behavior and felt an overwhelming sadness, understanding that she too was grieving. The loss was as incomprehensible to her as it was unbearable. Fearing Luna might disrupt the funeral, Nathan and other family members led her to the barn and secured her inside until the ceremony was over. But as soon as Luna realized she was confined, she began kicking at the stall door, pounding the ground with her hooves and letting out loud, distressed whinnies. "Luna," Nathan murmured under his breath, though he knew there was no calming her. Each strike of her hooves echoed through the stillness, a physical manifestation of her anguish. It was her way of protesting, of refusing to accept the separation from Samuel. For her, being kept away from him at such a time was an unbearable, inexplicable tension. Yet the family had no choice but to keep her enclosed, fearing her presence might disturb the solemnity of the service. As friends and family gathered in the yard for the ceremony, Luna's anguish reverberated from the barn. Her whinnies carried over the quiet gathering, each sound laced with a raw pain that everyone could feel. Some mourners turned their eyes toward the barn with heavy hearts, acutely aware that the mayor was grieving just as deeply as they were. Her sorrow hung in the air like a tangible force, amplifying the weight of the loss they all felt. The ceremony proceeded in a somber hush. Each person took their turn to bid farewell to Samuel, silently reflecting on the indelible mark he had left on their lives. There were no grand speeches or elaborate words, only downcast faces and solemn gazes of respect for the man who now rested in peace. While each person bid their farewells in their own way, the echoes of life still confined in the stable resonated in their hearts. The stable trembled under the rhythmic pounding of hooves against its doors, a desperate symphony of strength and longing. The mayor, confined and misunderstood, couldn't remain still. It was as though something deep inside her compelled her to be near her friend in this final moment. She couldn't endure the separation, not while others were allowed their goodbyes. Her restless heart seemed to beat in time with her strikes against the door, each one louder, more forceful, until at last the door gave way. With a thunderous burst of energy, Luna galloped out, her speed and strength stunning those nearby. As she surged toward the ceremony, family and friends of Samuel parted in her path, fear and confusion painting their faces. The solemn atmosphere shattered under a wave of startled murmurs, some retreating to make way for the unexpected arrival. Yet Luna pressed on, her dark, piercing eyes ablaze with an unrelenting determination, a potent mix of grief and resolve. Step by step, it became clear she wasn't just running, she was searching for something or someone. Finally, her gaze locked onto Samuel's chiffon. Without hesitation, Luna charged forward, stopping only when she reached it. Raising one powerful hoof, she struck the wooden surface. The sharp, resonant sound of hoof meeting wood silenced the murmurs. Again and again she struck the coffin, each strike carrying a weight beyond mere instinct, as if she were trying to communicate something urgent, something no one else could understand. The rhythm of her blows seemed almost like a plea, a lament, or a cry for help. "Luna, stop it!" shouted a relative, cautiously approaching her, but Luna refused to yield. There was a force behind her actions, a will that no human command could suppress. Each strike reverberated like an unspoken bond, a testament to the love and loyalty she couldn't relinquish. As confusion overtook the mourners, a few brave souls stepped forward, attempting to calm her, but their efforts were futile. Luna's unyielding determination held sway, and her relentless hoofbeats resounded like a mournful chant through the tense air. Then one particularly forceful blow caused the wood to splinter slightly, leaving a small crack. Gasps rippled through the crowd as Samuel's sister stepped forward, a mixture of dread and hope flickering in her eyes. Overcome by an inexplicable compulsion, she knelt beside the coffin, her trembling hands brushing the fractured surface. Leaning in, she pressed her ear to the crack. At first there was only the heavy silence of death, but then a faint sound, like a whisper, reached her ears. Her eyes widened in shock as she pulled away, her voice trembling. There's something inside." Her words sent a jolt through the gathered crowd, freezing them in place. It was a moment suspended in disbelief, time itself seeming to hold its breath. Spurred into action, a few men stepped forward. With shaking hands, they began to pry the lid open, their faces etched with fear and urgency. Luna stood nearby, motionless now, her eyes fixed on the coffin with an intensity that had suggested her work wasn't done yet. The air grew thick with anticipation as the men worked, every creak of the wood amplifying the tension. Finally, with one last effort, the lid was lifted, revealing Garrett's still form. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd when a faint, almost imperceptible sound, a sigh, emerged from within. Though barely audible, it was unmistakable. A fragile thread of life still clung to him. Frozen in shock, the mourners stared in stunned silence. "He's alive!" someone cried out, their voice breaking with emotion. A wave of disbelief and exhilaration swept over the gathering. Slowly, Samuel's eyelids fluttered open. He blinked against the daylight streaming in, his face etched with confusion as he tried to comprehend what had just transpired. Samuel's unfocused eyes gradually began to settle, adjusting to the astonished faces surrounding him. Though still disoriented, he scanned the crowd, searching desperately for something familiar. A lifeline amidst what felt like a dreamlike chaos. Finally, his gaze landed on Luna, the faithful mare standing silently to one side, her head tilted slightly as if patiently awaiting their reunion. "Luna," Samuel whispered, his voice barely audible and fraught with weakness. Though his body was frail, the sight of his steadfast companion filled him with a profound sense of peace, a reassurance that, against all odds, he had returned from a place where few ever come back. Hearing her name, Luna moved forward slowly, her large dark eyes fixed intently on Samuel's. In their locked gaze was something unspoken, a connection that transcended the human experience, a bond deep enough to challenge even the finality of death. Around them, Samuel's family wept openly. The miracle before their eyes was something none had dared hope for, gratitude mixed with disbelief as they took in the extraordinary sight. His sister approached hesitantly, her emotions overwhelming her as she gently took his hand and cried silently. Others wiped tears from their cheeks, casting reverent glances at Luna, finally understanding the depths of her loyalty. It was her relentless devotion that had kept Samuel from slipping away into eternal rest. "Thank Luna, Samuel," a family member said, their voice choked with emotion. "It was she who saved you." Samuel gave a feeble nod, his mind still grappling with the events, but his heart certain of their truth. Luna's unwavering love had shielded him, pulling him back from the brink. The murmurs of the gathered crowd were interrupted by the arrival of the town doctor, who had rushed over upon hearing the commotion. Pushing through the throng, he knelt beside Samuel, checking his pulse and vital signs. Finally, he exhaled in relief, addressing the group with measured authority. "What Samuel experienced is an extremely rare condition called catalepsy," the doctor explained. "In this state, the body becomes utterly immobile, with breathing so faint it mimics death. Many mistake it for the real thing." He turned to Samuel's family, who hung on his every word, their faces a mixture of wonder and confusion. "It's rare, but it happens." Somehow Samuel's bond with Luna must have allowed her to sense what we could not, that he was still alive, though imperceptibly so. She made us realize he was still here. The crowd nodded slowly, their gazes shifting back to Luna, whose calm and steady presence contrasted sharply with the storm of emotions around her. She remained at Samuel's side, her serenity unbroken, as though she had always known what everyone else had only just discovered. To Samuel, the world was becoming real again, with every breath. He stretched out a hand toward Luna, who gently lowered her muzzle to meet him. Feeling the warmth and texture of her skin confirmed the truth. He was alive. Life itself had reclaimed him, and it was Luna who had been the bridge that kept him tethered to this world. "Thank you, Luna," he murmured, his voice barely audible but imbued with profound gratitude. Luna seemed to understand, her large dark eyes reflecting a wisdom beyond words. Those watching the scene were overcome. Some wept openly, while others stood in hushed reverence, understanding that what they witnessed was extraordinary, a testament to loyalty and love that transcended the ordinary. After the miraculous reunion, Samuel's family carried him home with the utmost care, treating him as if he were made of glass. They were acutely aware of his fragility after such a harrowing brush with death. In the days that followed, the house was filled with warmth and vigilance. Samuel's loved ones never left his side, tending to him with unwavering devotion and cherishing every moment of his second chance at life. No one seemed as attentive as Luna, who, since Samuel's return, had become his unwavering shadow. The first time Samuel managed to step into the pasture after days of rest, Luna stood waiting for him, her patience almost palpable. She approached him cautiously as if sensing he was still regaining his strength. Samuel, still frail, extended his arms and wrapped her in a long, silent embrace. Luna stood steady, letting him lean against her neck as though her presence alone could restore the energy he had lost. "Thank you, Luna," Samuel whispered, his voice soft but weighted with gratitude. Those two simple words carried a depth of emotion he could never fully articulate. He knew that without Luna's extraordinary presence, he might not be standing there at all. From that moment on, Luna was no longer just a horse to him. She had become a part of his soul, a companion who shared a bond with him that words could never fully describe. As the days passed, Samuel's strength slowly returned. His family, deeply thankful for the second chance they had been given, embraced Luna as one of their own. No longer just an animal, she was now an irreplaceable member of the household, cherished by everyone. Luna, with her calm demeanor and unwavering loyalty, had earned the love and respect of entire family. The story of Samuel and Luna spread quickly through their small community, passing from one person to the next like wildfire. Each retelling was imbued with awe and respect, as neighbors marveled at how a simple horse had accomplished the impossible, awakening Samuel from what had seemed like an endless sleep. To many, Luna became a living testament to true loyalty and a love so pure it could transcend the bounds of life itself. As Samuel grew stronger, he spent more and more time with Luna. He spoke to her in quiet tones, sharing with her the moments and memories that had forever changed them. Their afternoons together became a ritual, silent walks through the fields, side by side, the bond between them needing no words. For Samuel, every step alongside Luna was a reminder of the profound lessons she had taught him without uttering a sound. The townsfolk, watching the man and his horse move as one, were filled with a mixture of reverence and admiration. Some even said that seeing Samuel and Luna together was like witnessing a daily miracle, a tangible symbol of a bond that defied logic or explanation. To the people of the town, this man and his horse represented something far greater than themselves, a hope that resonated deeply within the human spirit. Over time, the story of Luna and Samuel transformed into legend. It was retold around dinner tables, at family gatherings, and even captivated the youngest members of the community. Their tale of love and loyalty touched hearts everywhere, serving as an enduring reminder that friendship and devotion could overcome even the shadow of death itself. Samuel, profoundly aware of the lessons Luna had imparted to him, dedicated himself to caring for her with the same love she had shown him. He looked at her with a tenderness that only someone who had brushed against mortality could truly understand. Though he knew he could never repay her for all that she had done, he sought to show his gratitude in every gentle word and touch. "Luna, you're my friend, my family, my miracle," he would murmur softly, his hand gliding over her silky mane. Luna, as always, gazed at him with serene eyes, her calm expression exuding a wisdom that seemed timeless. It was as though she could comprehend every unspoken thought and emotion he carried. In time, Samuel returned to his life on the farm, but with a renewed appreciation for every sunrise, every quiet moment spent with his steadfast companion. His experience had taught him that life was fragile, each moment a gift, and that true love could work wonders. For the town, the story of Samuel and Luna grew beyond a simple tale. It became a testament to the sacred bonds that could exist between beings, a powerful reminder of loyalty and love that reached beyond the boundaries of the human heart. In every smile Samuel shared and every spirited neigh of Luna, the town found a reason to believe in the beauty of life's small miracles. And so life on the farm carried on amid the daily grind in the serene countryside, infused with a renewed sense of purpose. Samuel and Luna, bound by an extraordinary experience, walked forward together as they always had, held together by a sacred bond that had achieved the impossible. Their story would continue to inspire anyone who heard it, a tale of unwavering loyalty and love that transcended the imaginable. If this story has touched your heart, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel so you won't miss out on more heartfelt stories and valuable lessons. We're always ready to bring you videos that explore the depths of human connection, friendship, and sacrifice. Share this video if you believe it can inspire someone, and feel free to leave a comment below to share your thoughts. Thank you for watching and for being a part of our journey in discovering these emotional stories. Always remember, every moment in life is precious and worth cherishing.